Welcome into this week's edition of the Lion Week in Review, a special edition, one-on-one. This week we talk one-on-one with some of the newsmakers and the folks behind ReadLion.com. In fact, one individual that you see every week here, but maybe in a different capacity. We're going to have a conversation today. He's the executive editor of The Lion, Michael Ryan, who we all know well, and he's authored a brand new book that I want to tell you about called You Rule, How Saving America Depends Entirely on You and What You Can Do About It. Michael, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Glad to have a one-on-one chance to get to know you a little better. For the audience that watches us every week, we don't always get to dive in deep, but I want to tell people first about your background. You have been a newspaper man for a very long time, back when newspapers were a thing.
Yes. Well, I grew up in Kansas City, and then I went on this nomadic newspaper career for over 40 years, taking me, to central Kansas, Topeka, and then to Georgia for a number of years, and then Texas for a short time in Fort Worth, and then back to Kansas City at the Kansas City Star editorial board, and now with the Herzog Foundation doing The Lion.
And what I know about you and getting to know you over the years is you fancied yourself, and I think you still do, a straight-ahead journalist. I mean, yes, you have opinions, but I think you always tried to get it right. Give me your kind of 30,000-foot view of journalism today, and maybe when you went into it as a younger man, did you have a different opinion of it?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a mess today. Journalism is not what it was when I signed up for it. I started doing, I did everything you could in terms of reporting, even the obituary disc on Christmas Day. But I started doing opinion writing in 1991. And I found that if you're going to do intelligent opinion writing, you need to be as fact-based as a reporter, as a straight news story. And so that's kind of how I grew up in the industry. And what I've seen is very discouraging. It's depressing what I've seen. Bernard Goldberg wrote a book about his experience at CBS many years ago called Bias, and he followed up with another book or two. And his point of view at the time was the liberal bias he saw at CBS, which they followed the New York Times all around, and was a product of them not knowing that they were being biased. I don't think you can say that today. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And it's just amazing to me what's going on. With the Russia hoax and everything, they're doubling down on what they won Pulitzer Prizes for promoting, which was a hoax.
And in fact, it's a little shocking to read in some of these declassified documents that newspaper like the New York Times, the vaunted New York Times, was complicit in helping push a storyline.
Yeah, I mean,
working with government.
Every time we get a document dump, it's worse and worse. It's deeper and deeper. I tell the story that what I saw pre-2016 and post-2016. And I say that, someday historians are going to be able to cut a huge redwood, and they're going to see a huge line where the 2016 election occurred, because that was it changed everything. The people that I worked with in newspapering in 4 major newsrooms were always to the left, but this took them over the cliff. I mean, Trump derangement syndrome is real, and I've seen it up close and personal.
I wondered that. Is there a moment, is it Trump? That's the moment that you would point to where journalism just went completely off the rails and dropped any pretense of impartiality?
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
Which,
and I was on what amounts to Irish Public Radio several weeks before the 2016 election, because they found me through a friend, and they thought, well, here's a guy who can explain Trump to us. It's almost like doing some kind of surgical, vivisection on Trump. And so I had a nice segment with him, and then afterwards they said, well, why don't you come back the morning after the election, we'll talk. And when I did, I had to stay up all night for it because, it's a different time zone and everything. I stayed up for nothing because they had me on for about 20 seconds, and they didn't want to hear it. They just didn't want to hear it. So Trump derangement syndrome is a pandemic.
I assume, maybe I shouldn't, but I assume that your concerns over this and where you've kind of seen things go directionally for the country is what led you to write the book that's been doing so well. If people don't have it yet, they should go grab it, called You Rule. And there's a new project in the offing I want to get to in a little bit related to the book. But let's start with the premise of the book and why you wrote it to begin with.
Yeah, I just looked around, and the more I wrote and talked about the state of the country, the more concerned I became. And I came to a realization that neither party was going to solve this, that it was going to have to be a grassroots solution to all this, that it may take, constitutional amendments or whatever. But at the same time, you see the state of knowledge about our country is just off a cliff, especially with young people, but even older people. They need to know two things. One is what makes America tick, and number two is what keeps America together. And so, I go back to a scene in Braveheart about early Scotland, and one character says to another, from top to bottom, this country has no sense of itself. I think that's us today. I mean, you see the massive mood swings in elections. You go from Bill Clinton to Bush to Barack Obama to Donald Trump to Joe Biden back to Trump. So I think there's a problem with the electorate that we're not sure exactly what we believe, number one. And number two, I think there's a great void in the teaching of civics and just how the system should work and how we differ from other countries. We talk about American exceptionalism. Barack Obama seemed to think that was just pride, national pride, and it's not. It's way beyond pride. It's exceptionalism in the standpoint that we have a system that is different and better than every other system that's ever been tried in human history. And that's exceptional, and we shouldn't, gloat about it. It's not us. We're not different in our DNA. And it shows in the corruption that we've seen, right? We are very much a corruptible species, even in America. What's different about America is the system, and what's laid out in the Constitution, the principles of the founders and the founding documents, the Federalist Papers, the Declaration of Independence. And so we need to have an understanding of that, and we don't.
And to your point, we see what's going on in New York right now, where the leading candidate is a straight-up avowed socialist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, I wrote this modest little ebook called You Rule, and I just put it out there and just to see what happens. And I do a lot of talking about it in front of groups. But we need to know, what makes America tick and what holds it together. What holds it together is the system of government that we have.
Yes.
And the principles behind it. The English don't have to teach how to be English, and the Germans don't have to consciously hand down what it means to be German, and the French would never do anything but French, right? But America, you have got to hand this down from generation to generation, and we haven't been doing it.
You Rule is the name of the book. Now, what's so great is Dr. Ben Carson recently visited the Herzog Foundation, where we had a lovely evening with him and a private gathering of some folks to talk about his work. He's got some new projects out there, former HUD secretary, for people that don't know, brilliant brain surgeon, candidate for president. I mean, just kind of an unbelievable story personally, which we talked about. But he saw You Rule. He heard about this and thought it would make an appropriate project for something he's doing.
Yeah, and you've interviewed Dr. Carson, and what an incredible human being he is.
Isn't he? Yeah.
Above everything, right?
He sure is.
I'm in consultation with Dr. Carson's people at American Cornerstone Institute. They think You Rule has something there. They want to do something with me on it.
Awesome.
And with the Herzog Foundation. They've even asked me, and we've just completed, to do a kids' You Rule book, because You Rule is basically written for middle or high school and above. And they have a particular program, Little Patriots, that they have geared for K through 5. And so we've come up with a K through 5 edition of You Rule, which is going to be another ebook. And just on the cusp of celebrating America's 250th birthday, I think it's a great time for this.
I'm encouraged. Dr. Carson's organization, Cornerstone, you talk about Young America's Foundation, Scott Walker, which we do a lot of work with, and, of course, Charlie Kirk and Turning Point. Are you optimistic? Your book, young people, are they learning civics? Are we turning a corner?
I think we are turning a corner. I think the birthday celebration, which we're going to be celebrating all year until next July 4th, it's a great opportunity. There's all kinds of feelings out there for this. There's other people in the civic space doing this. Richard Dreyfuss, the actor, is into this. And there's a great movie, The American Miracle, that's out there now. So this is an incredible confluence of factors that are lining up to give a rebirth, a renaissance to patriotism, to knowledge about America, appreciation for America, and what I've done is, I hope, going to be a small part of that. The Herzog Foundation is going to do a lot of special stuff. I don't know how much I'm supposed to reveal at this point, but they're going to do some real special stuff going up to the 250th.
In fact, a little later in this show, as we have been for previous shows, we've been kind of celebrating that 250th birthday. We'll be doing that all year here on the Lion Week in Review. Michael, where can people get your book, You Rule? Best place to do it?
Yes, You Rule is on Amazon and on bookbaby.com.
Okay. And so pick that up, You Rule, and we will continue to watch for it when the children's edition, perhaps, a younger children version, maybe comes out in the future.
Yeah, very soon.
Future.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to work with you every week, but it's cool to get to sit down with you and get this one-on-one time.
Thanks for the invitation.
Michael Ryan, our executive editor at readlion.com. The book is You Rule. When we get back, a look at redistricting. You know, it's not just Texas. The state of Missouri is thinking about it, too, and one of the state representatives involved in that discussion is Josh Hurlbert. He'll be with us as our special edition of the Lion Week in Review one-on-one rolls on. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Lion Week in Review. It's a special one-on-one edition where we talk to some newsmakers in and around our area. Specifically today, the 8th District Representative of Missouri is Josh Hurlbert. He's down there in Jefferson City, and we thought there were a couple of issues of note that we wanted to talk with you about today. Representative, good to have you here.
Absolutely. Always great to be on.
So, two questions. One that has sort of broader implications in the national discussion. I'll start there. We know what's going on in Texas right now. Big fight with redistricting.
Yep.
I have heard it said that Missouri may be one of those states thinking about doing it too. What do you know about that?
Yeah, there's absolutely been some conversations. The governor's been very open that he's had conversations with the White House and House and Senate leadership about redistricting in Missouri and how does that look like in a mid-cycle. So right now, a lot of those negotiations are centering around what exactly do we want these maps to look like? Can we get them even more compact and concise in a way that puts an advantage for Republicans? So we're looking at all options, and I know the governor, if there's a plan that kind of comes together that way, he'll call us in for a special session.
I mean, you just said it, and I don't think anybody's making any bones about it. This is it's a political maneuver, is it not? Is that? I mean, do we all understand that? Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is coming from the White House. This is something that the president wants to see happen on a national level. There were states that left seats on the table, including Missouri, back in 2022 when we redistricted. The Democrats did not do that. That was something that you look at what's happened in Illinois. You look at what happened in Connecticut and Massachusetts and states like that where Republicans are grossly underrepresented. We didn't quite do that here in Missouri. We kind of played a little bit more ball, and it's time now as we come into this mid-cycle to actually play hardball politics.
Does that mean it becomes increasingly harder for the party out of power to ever get back in power? I mean, to be perfectly honest, when that word gerrymandering is thrown around, as you said, I mean, you look at Illinois, I don't know how you can be competitive and control Illinois as a Republican ever again, given what they did. Same with California and others. Is that the goal, ultimately, when Republicans are in power of a particular state? You want to solidify it and keep it that way?
Well, at some point in time, you have to fight fire with fire, and we've been taking it from the Democrats, one state at a time that way in terms of redistricting. We totally get it, hosed in Illinois and Oregon and California and these other states. Now it's time to draw that firewall and say no farther and actually begin to fight back. And that's something that traditionally we haven't done as well as Republicans, but now we've got a little bit more spine and we're willing to do it.
So when people like Gavin Newsom in California or Kathy Hochul in New York, when they threaten, well, then maybe we'll just do it too, what do you say?
They can't. What I'm saying is they've already done that.
There's nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere else to go. They have cut that to the bone to try and get that back in 2022. There's nowhere else that you actually compare the seats that Democrats could gain. I mean, they might be able to gain a seat or two there compared to what Republicans can gain in red states, and it's overwhelmingly in Republican favor.
J.D. Vance has said that over the last 30 years, Democrats have really, his words, rigged the game, both in House seats as well as just the vote count, maybe in some cases counting illegal aliens as potential voters. Is that your sense of it? Are there too many wildly divergent Democrat seats versus what there actually ought to be in the House of Representatives?
Well, it's no secret. The U.S. Census has always counted illegal immigrants. So at that point in time, you're actually counting those illegal immigrants as part of your redistricting numbers. Mm-hmm. You're not just counting citizens, you're counting illegal immigrants. So that's, of course, going to give a higher voice to Democrat areas. And that was very intentionally done, by the way, by the Obama administration back when we were did the census that way as we were getting ready for the 2020 census. So, and they did the same thing in 2010 that way as well. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to, fight back finally. And that is something I appreciate the Republican Party finally doing.
So do you think, how do you see it? And again, you're for those that don't know their civics well, and I get it, I'm not picking on anybody, but so you're in Jefferson City, you're in the capital of Missouri, but what you're discussing are district boundary lines that impact who represents Missourians at the federal level, just so everyone's clear.
Correct, in Washington.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, how many seats do you think could be picked up at the federal level, not just Missouri, but altogether for Republicans? What kind of dynamic shift do you think you could see?
I've seen between states like Florida taking a hard line, between Texas, between us and a couple other red states as well. We're looking at maybe gaining 15 to 20 seats.
That would be meaningful if you're talking about razor-thin margins in the House right now.
Absolutely. It's especially with the way we are right now, where it's, I believe it's a 2-vote margin on a lot of these issues, that it would be a game changer for the Trump administration as they go into those final 2 years.
Do you ever see a day that a blue state like California or New York or Illinois could ever change, or are we just in an era now where red states will be red and always stay red, and blue states that are blue will always be blue?
I think there's always a time where you're going to have some give and take that way. I mean, shoot, back in the 90s, Republicans in Missouri could have caucused in a closet, and now Democrats are caucusing in an outhouse. So it is absolutely, there's going to be political winds that shift from time to time that way. But, if we're just going to have Democrats do this in other states, we've got to start fighting back, and Missouri's going to be part of that battleground.
Do you see any other things that have been on President Trump's radar coming home to the state legislature in Missouri besides redistricting? Are there any other big issues that you think you guys in Jefferson City would take
Sure.
up?
Another one that's come down from Washington is going to be Medicaid reform. So as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill, there were items in there to allow us to do a little bit more enhanced provisions that we can actually start to do some more checking on the Medicaid rolls. We can actually put in work requirements. We can actually do some things like that. Now, it's also going to require Missouri to change a little bit how we fund our portion of Medicaid because of some of the provisions in that bill as well. But that's something I think we can, talk through. We have a few years to implement it all as well. We don't have to rush into it, but we'll be able to get there as well on Medicaid reform.
How about things like school choice? Where does that stand? We know the president wants to eliminate the Department of Education. Where does Missouri go with that?
I think Missouri's starting to take steps towards being a school choice friendly state. We're 25 years behind Arizona and Florida, but we're making steps that way. So I think Missouri will keep making progress on that front, especially under the Kehoe administration. The governor's been very clear he supports school choice, and I'm looking forward to working with him for the next 3 years.
And then finally, one of the more interesting things, at least for people in the Kansas City region, maybe for people that are listening elsewhere, not so much, but there's been this fascinating tug of war between Kansas and Missouri as we border there with Kansas and the stadiums. You've got the Chiefs, you've got the Royals, a stadium lease that's up where they currently sit, and there's serious talk that Kansas would love to invite them both over. I know you guys in Jefferson City are doing your level best to try to keep them happy, and in Missouri, where do you think that stands right now?
Yeah, I'm confident that the teams will eventually stay in Missouri. I think we have a very competitive offer to what Kansas is offering the teams. I think ours is more stable that way as well. When you start playing with Kansas Star Bonds, those have a history of defaulting, and that is not something the teams are looking to a risk that the teams are looking to take on. So I think what we have here in Missouri is a very competitive offer, but it's also fair to taxpayers. It's unlike other states. I mean, Kansas is offering a 70-30 public-private split. We're doing 50-50, and it's in terms of how much is actually it's worth, it's actually going to be competitive that way because of how stable it is. So it's good for taxpayers, it's good for the teams, and I think we have a really good chance of keeping these teams in Missouri.
What is the drop-dead date on this? I mean, it seems like it has dragged on for now years, right? I mean, when are you up against the wall and have to hear from them when they made a decision?
That's one of the things about Missouri's offer is that it until there is a local effort from whether that's Clay County or Jackson County, the state portion doesn't kick in. So we're really kind of waiting on the local counties and the teams to come to an agreement, and then we can start to support it from the state side.
Okay, so then in terms of a deadline, there really isn't one.
It's really up to the teams. I mean, they still have a lease through the 2031 season at the Truman Sports Complex, so they're at some point in time, they're going to have to make a decision because there's going to be some build time in there. But they are committed to Missouri at least through that time.
Well, that's a good point. So they would have to have a place to move into by 2031.
Correct. That's when their lease expires, or they could, of course, extend their lease on a year-by-year basis at that point in time. But they need some place to go, and it's 2031's the current end date.
Boy, if we're still talking about this in 2030, whoosh. Well, Representative Hurlbert, thank you for stopping by. It's always very fascinating. I hope you'll be able to come back and visit with us, but we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
And once again, we thank Representative Hurlbert for his time. As the Lion Week in Review, our special edition one-on-one rolls on. When we get back, I sat down earlier with a councilman in Kansas City. He wasn't responsible for the government-run grocery store, but he had a lot to say about it. You may have heard that Zoran Mandami, the candidate for mayor in New York City, wants to implement government-run grocery stores. It's been tried in Kansas City, and Councilman Nathan Willett had plenty to say about it. You'll hear about it in our conversation when the Lion Week in Review one-on-one, our special edition, rolls on.
When someone stands up and says, I will lead this city by making it more affordable, and here are my plans, real plans to deliver on childcare, plans to deliver on housing, plans to deliver, we're going to experiment, we're going to try things on groceries. That is the Democratic message.
Okay. So there's Pocahontas saying the Democratic message is we're going to try government-run grocery stores. Well, I got news for her and Mad Manny there in New York. It has been tried, and it's failed spectacularly. Someone who was not supportive of it, but part of the city council that introduced it, Nathan Willett, a Kansas City City Council member. He represents the 1st District of Kansas City on the Missouri side and joins us this morning. Councilman Willett, thanks for your time. Hi.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning from Kansas City, Missouri. How are you?
Grateful to have you, friend. Doing very, very well. And I want to say right off the top, this had nothing to do with you. This was not your idea. But we reached out to you because I knew you'd have some commentary about what this became a national story, actually, when he introduced this a couple of weeks ago. They focused very specifically on a failing grocery store in Kansas City. Can you give us the background on it, how it came to be?
Yeah, so I think back in 2017, before I was on the council, the city put millions of dollars into development, and they are the landlord for a grocery store, and the grocery store has had many problems, and the theory is just write another check to them to solve those problems. But Chris, there's something that the national media has not covered that I think you're the first one to hear on this show. Quite possibly the biggest reason why the failure of this grocery store is because of the free bus program in Kansas City. We have had free fare, which means anyone and everyone can ride around the city, and there's a bus stop right in front of this grocery store, and it has just increased crime, skyrocketing crime right in front of it. And you've seen crazed individuals come over from that bus stop and ransack the grocery store. So the city is trying to solve a problem, and then the city subsidized people's transit and created another problem. And that's exactly what the mayor of New York is going to be trying to do, or the future mayor. Hopefully not, but it looks like he's on the right track to become that. But what he has campaigned on has failed in Kansas City.
Nathan Willett, city councilman in Kansas City. And again, this is prior to your arrival on the council, but so free bus fare and city-operated grocery store. And the conclusion you've reached is people are taking advantage of the free bus fare to get to the government-run grocery store, and they're looting the government grocery store, using their free bus ride to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have seen community leaders and honestly on the east side of Kansas City not very excited about it either. And there's been calls for going back to full fare, and we are doing that as a council. So during COVID, we thought that'd be great to, and this was before I was on the council, to completely make our bus system free by using the influx of the federal dollars here. Even though that those are only one-time dollars, we thought we could totally change our transportation plan based on one-time dollars. But anyways, what we've seen is every single bus stop in the city has just had transported criminals around. We've seen increased property crimes. In my council district, which is in the Northland near the airport in Kansas City, we have a Walmart that went from just a typical nice greeter to we have two full-time off-duty KCPD working at Walmart in an area that had never experienced crime until the free bus system. So New York, you're not on a good trajectory, and expect crime in all parts of your city if you do the free buses.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, it's so funny because this guy is introducing this as a concept in deep, deep blue New York City. I think many people are stunned to learn that this was tried in the deep red state of Missouri. Even though Kansas City is a blue city, I think people are kind of shocked that this social experiment actually launched in the Midwest well before it's potentially introduced in New York, and it's a failure. Who was behind it? Who drove it? Was there a vote taken? And do taxpayers support the idea of their dollars subsidizing a grocery store?
No, so there was no vote taken in terms of the subsidy for the people at large. But back in 2017, there was, I believe, investment from the city into the store. And I think what has happened, and the only thing that I have actually supported was an increase of police presence in that area and also increase of security, because the government is causing a problem for folks around in that area with the free bus fare as well. So what we're doing is we're trying to solve another problem, and then we subsidize another situation where we think we're going to solve another problem, and we're just stacking problems on top of problems, and we're right back to where we were in that area. It's not safe anymore. There's a library right in front of it, and that library is used more as a homeless shelter than it is to actually check out library books.
And the company that runs this particular grocery store, it is a private company who's being subsidized with city taxpayer dollars, and the reporting on it is the store shelves are bare. You've just described looting as one problem, and theft. Is the private company that owns the store, are they just saying it doesn't behoove us to continue to stock shelves because of what you've just described, or there's a loss of money, or both? Or what's the private entity that owns the store saying about the experience?
Yeah, so when the city became a landlord for this private company, we entered in a contract that was not a very good contract. And if you look at it, we actually have a lot of liability, and they can sue us over a lot of different things. So even giving them, $500,000 of security payments can actually help us lose from preventing loss of millions of dollars down the line within the contract. So it's not a good situation. More money to it is not going to solve the problem. The one thing I asked to be done is for since we're giving so much public dollars to this institution, is for our Kansas City Economic Development Council to review their books. If they're going to have all this government money and need assistance, we need to have someone that actually looks at their books and help them figure it out. But unfortunately, you've seen the situation just spiral down, one city problem after another. And I think the free fare, that's the thing that's not being reported. The free fare and that bus stop right in front of it has been the absolute worst for this area. And ever since it's been full-fledged, you've seen the increase of crime, and that's where you've actually seen the biggest problems for this grocery store.
Yeah, I know. And again, we're joined by Kansas City Councilman Nathan Willett. When you hear people talk about food deserts, that's a term that I heard introduced during the Obama era. Food deserts, that is inner city urban core areas that don't have access to healthy produce and other things, no grocery stores. And the impetus for this arrangement is that very thing, to supposedly solve the food desert problem. How do you as a city councilman suggest that be addressed, if in fact you subscribe to that problem?
Yeah, well, 8 blocks away from this store is an Aldi, and they have fresh produce, and they never run out in that area. So, I mean, I would like all parts of the city to have, obviously great amenities, but the matter of fact that there is one just 8 blocks away, and we're just throwing all this money at this one store, and it's not fair to other people who are going out there taking the risk and building a quality store like Aldi is just several blocks away. And I think the lesson to learn here is, yes, the government may, and they made a commitment back in 2017 for this area. It hasn't worked. We added another problem with it with the bus stop on top of it. We got to fix our buses here. We have to actually screen people before they get on buses. We have about 50 people who've assaulted bus drivers, but we can't even hold them accountable and keep them off the bus because we don't even check for IDs on the bus. And those same individuals are going in and ransacking this grocery store. And there's videos that would not be appropriate for your viewers to see that I've seen firsthand and over again of just people totally nude, running around that grocery store, just totally taking all the potato chips, just smacking them across. It's actually insane. And until we get the bus situation, this grocery store, doesn't matter how much money the city gives it, it's not going to succeed. It will never succeed. And there's a lot of private folks who are doing the right thing a few blocks away.
Yeah, and I mean, in defense of the private entity, I mean, I'm sure they're happy to cash the check, but they're probably saying, "What are we? They would be insane to continue to fully stock a store that's being treated as you're describing." So I get what they're up against, but they're still cashing the checks from the Kansas City taxpayers. So what a nightmare. Councilman Willett, we would like to stay in touch. Thank you for being the canary in the coal mine. I hope the people of New York are listening this morning.
I appreciate being with you, and thank you for letting me join you this morning.
Our thanks to Kansas City City Councilman Nathan Willett for his time. As we wrap on the Lion Week in Review, and we're doing it all year leading up to the 250th anniversary of our nation, we have a new special called Faith and Freedom 250. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening and watching the Lion Week in Review. Check out readlion.com, and we'll see you back here next week.
When we think of America's founding documents, the Northwest Ordinance doesn't always make the list, but maybe it should. It shows us that the very beginning, education in this country wasn't about knowledge. It was about shaping moral citizens through religion, character, and truth. Let's take a closer look.
When people talk about the Articles of Confederation, they usually focus on everything that didn't work. Because it was a loose and therefore weak alliance of states, the leaders in Congress usually grappled unsuccessfully with the issues facing the fledgling nation from 1781 until the official ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1788. But despite its flaws, some meaningful accomplishments happened under the Articles. One of the most important was the Northwest Ordinance of 1787.
Though often just a footnote in American history, the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 laid out how vast new lands could become equal members of the Union. It also guaranteed certain rights to residents of those territories, years before the Bill of Rights was ratified.
The Northwest Ordinance made a powerful connection between religion and education. In just 14 sections and fewer than 2,000 words, it had a lasting impact on our nation. It built upon two earlier documents, the Land Ordinances of 1784 and 1785. These laws tackled the practical issues of how to settle new lands and organize them politically. The original ordinance of 1784 had been drafted by none other than Thomas Jefferson. This version provided a clear and concise list of the order of events that had to occur and explained how a territory would be governed in the interim between initial settlement and admission to the Union as a state. The Ordinance of 1785 was an extension of the first one, and its similar text was also ratified by Congress.
Then came the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. While the Constitutional Convention met in Philadelphia, delegates Nathan Dane and Rufus King revised Jefferson's work. They kept the structure but added something significant, a list of individual rights, especially around religion and education.
Section 13 signaled that shift. It reads, "And for extending the fundamental principles of civil and religious liberty, which form the basis whereon these republics, their laws, and constitutions are erected." That one line marked a turn from territory management to protecting individual liberty, something that was on everyone's mind in 1787.
What followed was a list of rights, many of which were enshrined a few years later in the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, collectively known to us as the Bill of Rights. Among those listed in Article 3 of the Northwest Ordinance was one groundbreaking sentence, quote, "Religion, morality, and knowledge, being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged," end quote. That one sentence forever altered the way that the American people viewed education.
What had been the responsibility of families or individual hamlets and villages was now the charge of the individual states. The other defining statement was the connection between religion, morality, and knowledge with education. All three, according to the text, were necessary for good government and the happiness of mankind. Therefore, it was in the schools and through education that all three components necessary to good government would be obtained by American citizens. This sentence is more evidence that the founding generation of the United States of America believed that religion and moral issues were and are paramount in governance. It is also clear that their intent was for state governments to forever encourage schools that inculcated religion, morality, and knowledge.
The Northwest Ordinance paved the way for state-funded education and later land-grant universities. 5 states emerged from the Northwest Territory: Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin, each committed to public education and protected religious freedom. For more than a century, the concepts of the Northwest Ordinance continued to shape the way the nation dealt with education. Moral and civic instruction of young people was among the primary responsibilities of the states. Regarding education, no strict wall of separation between church and state was advocated in the Northwest Ordinance. Just the opposite was true. These states relied on religion as one of the 3 pillars, along with morality and knowledge, for good government and happiness of their citizens.
That's a sharp contrast to what many assume today. The founders and the generations who lived through the Revolution knew what was at stake and what was required for a good government. They firmly comprehended that this republic required a morally responsible people to defend and preserve the freedoms which so many Americans had fought and died for.
Education rooted in religion, morality, and knowledge, as the Northwest Ordinance encouraged, became one of the hallmarks of the American experiment.